Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today we're celebrating the release of our book with Texas FFA, and I have one of the authors on the line. So, Ken Johnson, he's a counsel over at Martin Walton LLP. First off, hey, Ken, just want to say welcome to the show and congrats, man. We've been working on that book for a long time. So good to have you here.
Well, Adam, I thank you for the opportunity to visit with you today. I look forward to our discussion.
So Ken, as I've been putting together this series, we've been laboring over here, and we're big fans of Texas FFA and FFA in general. And we went to the conference last year where I'll be heading out there with my team to, I think Houston is the next one. Never been to Houston, so I'm really excited to get out there. But as I get, little by little, I'm getting more and more integrated. This will be year 3 for me going to conventions. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit of credit over here. I'm learning some things. It's been an amazing
Absolutely.
time.
When you've done something three times, it's tradition at that point. So we'll look forward to seeing you every year.
Oh man, I'm in. I'm in. I tell you, every year I go, I don't know how to explain it, but I'll try. It's like this dose of just inspiration, optimism, even just energy, being around all these young, bright minds that are so ambitious, that have such good hearts, and that, there it just gives me hope. Really gives me hope for the country, for the future, everything. What drew you to FFA originally? Like, give us some of the backstory so we can start there, maybe.
Yeah, well, I'm a farm boy from Nacogdoches, Texas, which is a little town up in East Texas, but our family connection to the Texas FFA and agriculture education actually goes back to the late 1940s. My
Hmm.
dad was an FFA student. He then became an agricultural science teacher and then moved into university administration and banking and served in the legislature and did a lot of important things in his life. But the way it kind of worked back home was the eighth grade speech teacher was kind of the pipeline to the ag program. And when she saw some folks that looked like they had a clue, she would tell the ag teachers. And basically, I got recruited into the FFA program. And we had at that time one of the largest chapters in Texas. We had about 200 members. That was big back in the day. Now
Hmm.
there's some chapters with 700 or 800 members. But I'm like you. The first thing I got to do as an FFA member was the ag teacher, one of the ag teachers, loaded up a car and
Hmm.
took 4 of us to Kansas City, Missouri to the National FFA Convention.
Oh, wow.
And that was the most impressive thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And walking out of that place, the goal was someday I want to be like those guys.
Hmm.
And the ability to lead a meeting, the ability to persuade people, the ability to think and do things that were far beyond what was bouncing around between my ears as a freshman in high school in 1972. So at any point, so I did 4 years of FFA in high school and then was lucky enough to serve as Texas FFA president. So I spent a year on the road, visited about 500 high schools, gave speeches at high school assemblies and all those kinds of
Yeah.
things. And then following that year, was elected to serve as national FFA president. So another year away from school, but got to travel the country and do essentially the same thing. So finished that, went to A&M, finished at A&M with a degree in agriculture economics, and then I decided to go to law school. And so I've been practicing law ever since.
Hmm.
But I was the second generation FFA members. Both of my sons
Hmm.
went through FFA here in the Houston area in the Spring Branch Independent School District. And so the ultimate degree or achievement in FFA is your American farmer degree. They call it the American degree now. My dad earned it. I earned it. Both of my sons have earned it.
Wow. And as I think about the FFA and I think about that energy and I think about my first time, like Aaron Alejandro, he I remember he tells me, he's like, "Hey, Adam, that
Yeah.
first year he told me, just come." And I'm like, "What?" And he's just like, "You just have to go." And I get there and I'm telling you, it's more like a rock show than I've never been to a convention like that. Like there's lasers and this, that thing. I think the first year was in Waco off the top of my head. And it was like, or yeah, no, it was Fort Worth. No,
Probably Fort
Fort
Worth.
Worth. Fort Worth. I
Fort Worth.
said
Yeah.
Waco, Fort Worth.
Right.
And I think there's like 16,000 people. There's this big arena. And I'm like, man, they didn't. Maybe they had something like this, but I don't remember. I'm from Michigan, and I'm like, I've never seen that. This is a rock concert. This isn't a supposed convention for agriculture. I'm like, how do they pull that off?
Well, and organizing and leading those
Yeah.
types of events is a skill set unto itself. But what that convention is really about is concluding a year and starting a new year. And so what
Mm,
you do is you recognize all of the members that have advanced in their degree level within the organization. You recognize those that have been successful
mm,
in competitions. What we talk about there is skill development competitions. And you recognize all of that. You give out the college scholarships.
mm.
You thank your sponsors and all the people that support the program, but then you focus on what you're going to do going forward. It's
Yeah.
always about getting better and doing more.
Mm. Let's talk about leadership. So in the book, the title of your chapter was Leaders Are Problem Solvers. And just to give the audience a little bit of context for some of the material in there, some of the headings, the importance of leadership, good leaders boost morale, good leaders engage people, good leaders build trusting relationships, good leaders inspire confidence, good leaders enable innovation. So a lot of different routes you could have went in the content that you submitted, and you're an expert in many different things. Why was leadership? Like, why was that so important to you and bringing that out into this book?
Well, I think what FFA really stands for is leadership development. It
Yeah.
in life, it kind of comes down to three things: knowledge, skill, and performance. Can you do those three things in a succession such that you accomplish the goals or the mission that you've set? And the first real leadership exposure or training I got was in FFA.
Hmm.
And it's a hands-on experience. You're learning by doing.
Yeah.
So to organize things, to set goals, to solve problems, that has just been something that's fascinated me since high school. And what I see is when you boil it down,
Yeah.
everything rises or fails on the quality of leadership that's involved. I mean,
Hmm.
I kind of look at it like 80 or 90% of whether or not a venture succeeds is based on the leadership. Have you
Hmm.
done the right planning? Are you diligent in executing your plan? There's sometimes things from the outside that can mess up your plan, but most of the time, if you have a plan, you know what you're doing and you do it, you're going to get to where you want to go.
Hmm. In those early years, as you were like traveling, doing all these, and I've heard this many times, and I'm just like, I can't even think about like now in retrospect, I'm like having that type of experience where you were traveling, you were speaking in front of chapters, you had all these things you were doing. Like most people, I would argue, don't, if they ever experience in their life, it's not until adulthood they're trying to figure some of this stuff out. But growing up in that environment where it's the normal, right? Like how has that like helped you in your career now, would you argue?
Well, in most every way, it's affected me.
Yeah.
So the develop of basic skills, the opportunity to practice those skills, that was something that I had the opportunity to do, as a high school student, as someone just out of high school. But those skills translate. And
Mhm.
so, no matter where you are in life, if you've got the ability to see what needs to be done, if you've got the ability to figure out a plan how to solve the problem, if you understand the work and the focus that it takes to get to the finish line, if you're able to work with people to get a joint plan in place and moving forward, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter where you are. If it's at home, if it's in business, if it's in government, that's what we need. We need everybody in the boat rowing together in the same direction.
Yeah. And so one of my big goals here in doing this series and otherwise is to bring, not just, bring the Texas FFA into to new audiences as well that maybe aren't that didn't grow up in that environment like myself, and especially corporate leaders, like individuals when people in this country talk about like people don't want to work or the future or the youth or all this, I tell them come to a Texas FFA convention. You want to see some leaders, our future leaders, come to that convention. Why, for the corporate leaders out there, in your opinion, for the corporate leaders out there like that aren't aware of it or that aren't showing up, like why do you think some of them should come and see it for themselves? Like why do you think that?
Well, I think it for a variety of reasons. One, as a society, our greatest resource is the next generation.
Yeah.
And so what they learn, what they know, what they're able to do will shape the future of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have in FFA is a program that has done that for almost 100 years. And it really can be summed up in the FFA motto. And I want you to think about how these things fit together. Here's the motto: learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, and living to serve. All right, learning to do is about knowledge. Knowledge is great. We all need it in every walk of life.
Yeah.
But if you can't use that knowledge, it's pretty worthless. So that's the doing to learn. And the beauty of this program is that whatever you learn, you have to apply in your competitions, in your what we call supervised agricultural education project. You've got to apply the knowledge. And when you do something, it's in your bones. You've really learned it. And so the next point is earning to live. So when you have knowledge and skill, then you're able to do something that's productive and you can pay your own way. That establishes personal responsibility. And then ultimately you put those three things together and it's about living to serve. And what we're talking about there is being productive members of society. So that's what's ingrained in these students from the time they may enter the program as middle schoolers or high schoolers. They got 2, 4, 6, 8 years of this experience. And so, pulling back off of that a little bit, what you've got is career skills. All right. Career skills, sure, they're targeted towards agriculture, but teamwork, leadership, those go everywhere. They're transportable. Fundamental business skills. We have to have projects. In other words, we have to have a business endeavor, whether it's a crop or livestock or a business. There's fundamental business skills there, including accounting, finance, and those types of things. But what it really comes down to is work ethic. And so think about those kids that are getting up before school and going out to tend to their projects.
Yeah.
Same kids come back after school and tend to their projects. And like Aaron likes to say, if we aren't doing our job, something's going to die.
Yeah.
The plant will die, the animal will die, the project will die. So those are the types of skills that these students demonstrate. And my belief is that in any walk of life, they're going to be applicable. So if you look at FFA members, they are in every profession. They are in every walk of life. And some of the leaders in business or government or sports or you name it, they're all FFA guys and girls. So, for example, Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Detroit Lions, who's turned that whole thing around. He's a good Aggie, a good Texas Aggie, but he's also a former member of the Texas FFA.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Go Lions. We're recording for everybody watching this or listening to this. I mean, it's January 25th of 2024. One more game and we're in the Super Bowl. Man, I'm over here. I'm sweating. I'm from Detroit originally. I don't know if you know that, Ken, but I'm from Detroit originally.
That's why I mentioned Dan and the Tigers, or the Lions, rather.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, that is just everybody's on pins and needles. But either way, hey, I'm in. And it's great for the city and it's great overall.
But think about it. What Dan's doing there, it's all about leadership. It's all about a vision and a plan and then executing that plan.
Yeah.
And think about this. There are people that don't want Dan to succeed. Who
Hmm.
did they just beat last week? I'm drawing a blank now. I've forgotten.
I am too, but go ahead.
But those guys
Yeah,
were
yeah.
going to mess up Dan's plan.
Oh yeah.
Able to pull
San
through.
Francisco next week.
That,
That's what they
that's
want to
right.
do. Yep.
That's right.
I want you to take a moment, Ken, and because I just find in my life this is true, and benefit of hindsight, right? Like sometimes you're going through experiences and you don't necessarily know at the time, and you reflect back and you're like, huh, I wish I'd have known that. If you can talk to some of those current Texas FFA members that are going through the program and that are, immersed in it, again, you reflecting back in your time, what kind of things would you tell them?
Well, what I would
Speak to the
suggest,
kids
yeah,
or the members,
well,
excuse me, the members.
sure. There are great opportunities for every member.
Mm,
Do your best to take advantage of every one of those. It's not necessarily about winning or being the best, but it's about learning something. It's about growing. It's about figuring out where you want to go and what you want to do. And so in the fall, we focus on leadership skills. In the spring, we focus on career skills.
yeah.
Each student needs to do something on both of those fronts. You don't want to be one dimensional. You want to be the person that can lead the project, that can be counted on to complete the project. But likewise, you need to have that knowledge and skill that you can get the job done.
Yeah, it's great. So one of the things you talked about in this was solving problems and leadership and the ability to do that. So in your day-to-day at Martin Walton LLP, I mean, you're solving complex business problems daily, especially in civil litigation. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I did something that no one else in my family had done. My folks were basically educators. Uh,
Mm.
and so I
When they
decided
said
that,
you want to be a lawyer, they're like, what?
well, it wasn't what, but it was, are you sure you want to do that? And the answer was, yeah, I think so. And there were a couple of reasons. One,
Yeah.
I never wanted education to be a limitation on what I could do. And the
Mm.
cool thing about being a lawyer is that you can do anything except prescribe medicine and perform surgery on humans. You can
Mm.
run a business, you can lead government, you can be in
Yeah.
the courtroom, you can do anything. So, in that regard, it's a wonderful opportunity.
Mm.
And I chose to go into litigation because I want to help people. And what I basically do is either I help clients avoid a problem, but
Mhm.
in most instances, I'm trying to help a client solve a problem.
Mhm.
So I have handled every kind of legal matter, I believe, except family law and criminal law.
Mm.
So any kind of civil litigation, I've probably handled one. But
Mm.
over the last 20 years or so, I've kind of fallen into a niche where we're doing complex civil litigation involving large bankruptcies where we're trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. In other words, there's been something that caused that entity
Yeah.
and the people that invested in it or the creditors to be left without the money that they should have. And so if there has been malfeasance or wrongdoing, it's our job to go out and try to collect that, bring it back to the bankruptcy estate, and try to get people some money that they're due.
Mm. And one of the reasons I asked you this too, of course, just to bring this to my audience, but also so that even some of those Texas FFA members and people that are listening, and when I think about your story, and it's a good representation of just life. Like we don't know, like if you're putting this pressure on yourself, whether you're in high school, college, that you have to have it all figured out or everything else, like you knew that even the way you say it, like, well, I think so. Like, I think I want to be a lawyer. But then even if you even look earlier in your law career, did you know that you were going to find this particular niche that's been, fruitful for yourself? You've helped a lot of clients. I mean, some of the other things you're doing, working on coal miner cases, bankruptcy trustee engagements, like all these different things. If you were to go back even to the Ken that was just getting started as a lawyer, to think that, okay, I'm going to be working on coal miner cases, you would have probably, correct me if I'm wrong, that probably wasn't, you didn't know, like you probably didn't even know it existed. Maybe.
No, that's exactly right. Did not know it exists.
Hmm.
But what this represents
Yeah.
is that when you start, things, opportunities, and conflicts or
Yeah.
difficulties will come your way. You deal with those, and one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
So, my goal has always been to do the best I can
Mhm.
on the case or the project that I have right now for the benefit of the client.
Mhm.
You talk about mission matters. Well, what we're talking about here is if I accept the mission,
Yeah.
we're going to do everything we can within the facts and the law to achieve a just outcome for that client. Now, sometimes that means we don't win, but generally, since I'm on the offensive side,
Yeah.
I have the advantage of trying to figure out the merits of the case before
Mhm.
we pick the fight.
Yeah.
And further, what I'm trying to do is even before we launch litigation, we may spend 6 months, 9 months, a year doing due diligence to
Mhm.
get the facts and the evidence together to make sure that we're on good legal grounds or a good legal basis to proceed. And then we know what we have evidence wise and what we need to get to complete the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. Completing the jigsaw puzzle, Ken. I think that's a great way to end this one. The jigsaw puzzle of life. But Ken, if somebody's listening to this and they do want or watching this and they want to follow up and continue the dialogue, learn more about Martin Walton LLP, how do they do that?
Well, my email address is kjohnson at Martin, Martin, Walton, Walton, law, law.com. And heck, I'll give you my cell number, 713-907-8325. Text me. I'd be happy to speak with anybody that's got any questions or concerns or opportunities that they want to discuss.
Wonderful. Well, Ken, again, appreciate you coming on the show. To the audience, hey, if you're watching this or listening to this and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Get that taken care of. Hit that subscribe button. We have much more content and amazing guests just like Ken that we want to bring straight to you. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss those episodes. Ken, really appreciate to all the FFA members out there. Hey, love what you're doing. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to see you at convention. Thanks again, Ken.
Look forward to it, Adam. Thank you, sir.